Now we'll hear from Jill Stein.
Yeah.
Thank you all so much for being here. Thank you, Shama and Howard and Kaya and the Green Party and the Socialist Alternative. It's really incredibly exciting to see you all here and to see where we have come. And we really are at this mind-boggling historic moment right now. And we're here because you have brought us here. And we are at this moment where democracy and justice are really rising up all around us right now. From the democracy revolutions in the Middle East, the uprisings in Wisconsin, the Occupy protests across the country, the Chicago Teachers Union strike on behalf of public schools, and good K-12 education for all kids in all communities. You shouldn't have to win a lottery in order to have a decent education. We're seeing it in the blockades of the Keystone Pipeline. And I heard just won an amazing victory in a stay of the southern portion of the pipeline. It's an indefinite stay, but it shows you the incredible power of our social movement that stands up and says, this is what's right, and we're going to insist on nothing less. We're seeing it in the eviction blockades, which are protecting homeowners from being thrown out of their homes. We're seeing it in the student strikes to stop tuition hikes. In California, at Santa Monica Community College, for example, where the students were pepper sprayed, they actually succeeded in rolling back the tuition hikes. Not to mention in Quebec, where those students were successful in stopping the tuition hikes, and they've gone on now to actually push for rolling back the cost of public higher education and making it free the way it should be. And in the protests and the blockades against nuclear power and nuclear weapons, in so many ways, this movement for democracy and justice is breaking out all around us. And as democracy is breaking out, the really exciting thing is that people are breaking away from the political establishment that got us where we are. So if you put it all together, in this election, we can actually use it, because at an election, people start paying attention and thinking about where we are. And we can use this election and that national conversation to start taking back and to make it a tipping point, to take back our democracy and the peaceful, just, green future we deserve. We can make this election that tipping point. And we must have a tipping point, because we are at a breaking point. We've hit the breaking point for people, for jobs, for decent wages, for the economy, for the planet, for our climate, for our civil liberties, for public education, for higher education, for our healthcare system, for our democracy. You name it, we are really at the breaking point. And the silver lining here is that it's also a wake-up moment. And people are realizing that we didn't get here just on account of one party. We came here on account of both establishment parties that have delivered crisis after crisis. And people are saying enough with those establishment corporate political parties. On issue after issue, we've seen the administration of Barack Obama basically embrace the policies of George Bush and then go much farther. And I'm going to run through the list just so that you've heard it and you can have it at your fingertips. So when you're talking to your friends and they're saying you're voting for who, you can run through why they should also be voting for us in this campaign. This race is sort of like, you know, I'm a medical doctor by training, and when people say, so what kind of medicine are you practicing now? I say I'm practicing political medicine because it's the mother of all of it. And we've got to fix this political illness in order to fix all the other ones that ail us. And part of practicing political medicine is that we all need to be therapists these days, because many of our friends are trapped in abusive relationships. Abusive political relationships, as you understand. And one of the hallmarks of being in an abusive relationship is that the victim is making apologies for their abuser. As in this case, where people are saying, oh, he had a bad year, or the Republicans made him do it, but he really loves me in his heart. And even though he's taken away their jobs and their homes and their education and their future and their credit and their climate, you know, they still have faith that next year is going to be better. Well, we have to just wake our friends and shake our friends and help them break up with that political abuser. So, you know, there are a few ways to approach this for anybody involved in the therapy profession. You know, so one way is to do the reality check. Sometimes that works and sometimes it doesn't. If it doesn't work, just move on. You know, you've done due diligence to do the reality check, but some people just have a bad case of the Stockholm Syndrome, and they're not going to get it no matter what. So then you just want to move on and talk to someone who's not financially secure and who's not over 40, shall we say, and who doesn't see the future as bright and glorious because they come from a position of privilege. And in fact, that leaves you lots of people to talk to, because 1 out of every 2 Americans now, as you know, is either in poverty or low income and heading for poverty. And in fact, as you may know, there are 36 million students and recent graduates who are effectively indentured servants and who are carrying around these unforgiving, horrific debts, specially customized for students, because they lack any of the usual consumer protections. You know, you just like totally blew it. You didn't hire a lobbyist. So you got really bad debt. Not only debt, but really the worst kind of debt possible. So there are 36 million such people. You know how many people are expected to vote in this election? It's around 90 million. And that leaves as many people, about 90 million eligible voters, who are not voting. They're voting with their feet by saying that neither Barack Obama nor Mitt Romney represents them. So that's a lot of people that we could get the word out to, and including those 36 million students and recent graduates. And of course, no one is in a better position to get that word out than the people who are in this room, who know how to use all those tools and live with all those tools of social networking. Because if the word got out and it went viral, that we could actually put an end to student debt on November 6th, we could abolish it. And you know how? Right now they're bailing out banks for the 4th time with this QE3, the third quantitative easing, which followed on the TARP program, which was a bailout, the first bailout. So it's 4 bailouts now, which have effectively done nothing except entrench the banks in their power, their riches, and their political might That's all we've accomplished. We've done nothing for the economy. We've done nothing for freeing up loans. We've done nothing to revive small businesses or worker cooperatives or jobs. So we're not getting anywhere with this QE stuff for the banks. How about instead of bailing out the banks, we break up the banks and we bail out the students? After spending trillions of dollars on the previous bailouts, and under Bush it was $700 billion, under Barack Obama it's been $4.5 trillion in money dispersed and $16 trillion in zero-interest loans. I know a few people right here today who could have used some zero-interest loans. $16 trillion would have been plenty to go around. But now they're bailing out the banks again to the tune of $40 billion a month. You do that for about 2 years, student debt is gone. We should just move that QE over and put an end to student debt. And while we're at it, it's time to make public higher education free as it was intended to be. Crazy fringe idea. When public higher education was actually established in California and in Massachusetts, it was basically free, and it did the job. During the GI Bill after the Second World War, we thanked our returning soldiers by providing college education for free, and Congress was following the numbers very quickly. For every dollar, I should say very carefully, for every dollar that taxpayers invested in free college education, $7 was returned to the economy in broad economic benefits, and that was more than enough cash revenue than the cost of paying for free public higher education. So it's not only the right thing to do, it's actually the economic, pragmatic, and profitable thing to do, is to invest in our generation of students who are critical for rebooting the economy every generation. It won't happen when students are in debt, but it will happen once we have made public higher education free and bailed out the students. Oh, it's way too expensive, you can't possibly do that. You know, it's exactly the opposite. It's way too expensive not to be providing public higher education for free. It effectively denies the economy an incredible just surge of riches, profit, and sustainability that comes from actually educating young people and providing them the security that young people deserve throughout the 20th century. We provided a high school education for free, and that was the right thing to do. It was part of the social contract that we provide what the younger generation needs for economic security, and a high school degree was essential throughout the 20th century. But now in the 21st century, a college degree is essential. So it's only just and right, as well as being the economical thing to do to make public higher education free. So we can do that. And if word gets out that we can do that on November 6th, imagine what would happen if 36 million students and recent graduates showed up at the polls and actually voted for themselves, voted green, and said no to voting for Democrats or Republicans. Because voting for either basically gives them a mandate for 4 more years of Wall Street rule, and that is the very definition of throwing away your vote. So it really is all about getting that word out to young people, to college students, because if that word gets out, 36 million people show up in a 90 million vote, a 90 million person vote, students could actually win it. Students have the power to actually control the outcome of this election. Now, don't tell anybody that, because if word gets out, we will totally blow the lid off of this political system. But if you want to tell a few people, who could tell a few people, who could tell a few people, we could have our own Tahrir Square on November 6th. So, just to finish that litany, to reality test your abused friends, again, there's the public education piece. There is the home foreclosures, millions of people who've been thrown out. Again, under Obama, this problem went ballistic. It started under Bush, but Obama has effectively done nothing about it. I'll just mention briefly the expanding war. One of Obama's first acts, actually his very first act that I recall, was appointing Larry Summers and Timothy Geithner to be his head of economics and treasury, effectively assuring us that nothing would be done about the Wall Street crisis. And then he brought in Jeffrey Immelt to head his jobs council. Jeffrey Immelt, who is the single person that has offshored more jobs, closed more factories, and put more people out of work than anyone in this country. So it was pretty clear from the get-go that this was not a president who's going to be held back by Republicans. This was a president whose agenda from the very start was essentially that of the Republicans. Another one of his first acts was to intensify the bombing in Pakistan on day 3. I don't know if people recall that. Then to surge the troops into Afghanistan. And the reason he withdrew from Iraq, sort of, yes. The reason he sort of withdrew from Iraq was because, believe it or not, we have George Bush to thank for this. It was George Bush's agreement with the Iraqi government that immunity for U.S. soldiers was going to end on that day, and Barack Obama did everything in his power to extend that date of U.S. immunity for our soldiers. He was unable to do that, so he declared victory and brought some of the troops home. So even that was not the peace president. Ironically, it took George Bush to bring the troops home under Barack Obama. So, you know, that's how much of a peace president he's been, and then to expand the drone wars into Yemen and Somalia and Pakistan. And now the CIA is talking about extending those drone wars into North Africa as well. So this is not what peace looks like. The same thing for the attacks on immigrant rights, on our civil liberties, on medical marijuana. The drug wars, the racist, failed drug wars continue to expand under Barack Obama, as well as his outrageous attacks on medical marijuana, which have been just really shameful and terrible. And finally, the climate crisis, which has just gone ballistic under this president. And if you actually had the stamina to watch the debate on whenever that was, the second debate, that horrific debate, what you heard was sort of a pissing contest between Obama and Romney about who could build more oil pipeline, who could basically emit more carbon and send us more quickly over the cliff of climate catastrophe. So, you know, for Obama, it's been basically drill, baby, drill on fracking, on more mountaintop removal, on more coal, on more offshore oil, on opening up the national parks, including the Arctic, undermining the international accords on climate, saying that we didn't have to worry, we could wait till 2020, and, you know, no way, no how. Anybody who's had their eyes open knows what's been happening this past year. Things are moving much faster than any science, even the most pessimistic science, is way behind compared to what's happening. So we cannot afford to wait until 2016 in the next election. It's not just okay to stand up and vote green in this election. It is life-saving, it is job-saving, it is planet-saving. And you can tell that to your friends who are trapped in an abusive relationship. It's time to stand up, and this is the time. Election really is in our hands. As Alice Walker says, the biggest way people give up power is by not knowing we have it to start with. Well, we have it, people are waking up to that, and we are not afraid to use it. And we know that we need to use it now while we still can use it before we go over the edge towards, the economic meltdown, the meltdown into the fascist police state, or the climate meltdown. This is the time to use that power. And in fact, we have that power now, because the agenda that we are supporting is the agenda that the American people support in large majorities in poll after poll. And very quickly, we are calling for a Green New Deal for America now, for creating the jobs for everyone that put an end to unemployment. That means a right to a job for everyone. We know how to do this. There's no need, as President Obama says, to just sit tight and wait another 10 or 15 years for the economy to recover. During the New Deal that got us out of the Great Depression, we created some 4 million jobs in 2 months. There is no excuse for 4 million people to be chronically unemployed right now. We can put people back to work practically overnight through the Green New Deal, create 25 million jobs, end unemployment, jumpstart the green economy, and that means an end to climate change, and it makes wars for oil obsolete. We are calling, as the American people are calling, for erasing student debt, as we mentioned before, and making public higher education free. Basically, education, pre-K through college, as a human right. We are calling for health care as a human right through Medicare for all. It not only covers everyone comprehensively, it puts you back in charge of your health care decisions instead of some profiteering CEO. And it actually saves us trillions of dollars over the coming decade. We can save more through Medicare for all than we can through the austerity package, which is being inflicted on us through this Budget Control Act of 2011, the Bowles-Simpson project, etc. We can save more money by providing health care for everyone as a human right than we can through austerity. So it's not because it is a substance that is dangerous because it's illegal. It's not illegal. Doing so, we can end this racist, failed war on drugs, which is filling up our $50,000 per inmate per year, we could be sending them to college and more decent future instead of locking them in prison and ensuring that they have no future at all. And as I mentioned, we're also calling for downsizing the military and bringing the troops home as the American people are calling for. As well as creating a legal and welcoming path to citizenship for the immigrant members of our communities who are essential to the diversity and richness of this nation, as well as essential components of our economy. We can revise those free trade agreements which created the crisis in undocumented immigration to start with. That was on account of NAFTA putting small farmers out of business. So we can turn those free trade agreements, which Barack Obama is negotiating right now behind closed doors in this Trans-Pacific Partnership, we can put an end to that and turn these free trade agreements, which are free if you are a corporation, if you are a human being, they are extremely costly and deadly. We can turn free trade agreements into fair trade agreements and make them work for us. So I'll stop the list there just in the interest of time, but there are so many things that we can do that the American public is already supporting. And therein lies the incredible power and excitement of this moment. Because we do have the power. We have the solutions, we have facts on our side, we have justice on our side, and we finally actually have public opinion on our side. It's all about taking our democracy back and getting elected officials into office who will actually be serving the public interest, not Wall Street and large multinational corporations. So we can do that. We actually have the potential numbers that we could win this election. If we could bring out half of those 90 million voters voting with their feet, saying no to Obama and Romney, if we could get half of them out, if we could just get out the students, all of the students, that alone could win this race. 36 million out of 90 million in a three-way race can win it. So we really do have the power, and even if we don't win the office, we can win the day. And that's why it's really important not to let their propaganda campaign tell you that we can't win. Because you don't have to win the office in order to win the day. As Kashima was saying, we can win the day simply by regaining our political voice and our political courage. For at least the last 10 years, since Bush, Nader, Gore, back in 2000 happened, the establishment parties have both been working overtime to try to persuade you that it's very dangerous to stand up and vote for yourself. In fact, what happened, just for the record, and you may want to pass this on to your hand-wringing abused friends as well, what happened in Bush, Nader, Gore was that Nader actually drew equally from Democrats and Republicans, and you can look this up on the web in the exit polls that were done by CNN and other reputable organizations. Nader did not just take did not just take votes from Democrats. He drew equally from Republicans, but that was only a very small portion of his votes. Most of his votes actually came from Ross Perot voters who had voted independent and who were not going to come out and vote for either a Democrat or a Republican. So it's absolutely false to say that Nader stole the election. It was the Supreme Court that stole it. And as people are doing right here in Washington State to stop the coal trains from coming to Bellingham. It's all politics of courage. That politics of courage is alive and well out in the streets. It's time to bring it into the voting booth, because that alliance of a social movement together with an independent political voice is unstoppable. That has been the driving force in just about every major political, social transformation, in the abolition of slavery, in women getting the right to vote, in the labor movement. These have always been hard fights fought on the street, then leveraged and powered up by an independent political voice that can help articulate that agenda and drive it into the political mainstream. So whether we win the office or we simply win the day by moving these solutions forward, it's a win no matter what. And if we stand up, we can turn this breaking point we face into the tipping point we need to take back our democracy and the future we deserve. A couple just final comments about how we can do that. You know, if you go on the website, you go to jillstein.org, you can go on Twitter, which is just Jill Stein 2012, or Facebook, which is just Jill Stein. Those are the really powerful tools. That's what brought us Tahrir Square. That's what brought us the revolution in Tunisia. Just young people basically getting out there on social media and saying, we're not going to let our future be destroyed. We are going to take it back. So it's networking. If you sign up to volunteer, if you have a couple hours, you can help with phone banking or canvassing or visibilities or getting the word out on the internet. If you go to our website and sign up for the newsletter, that's a really good way to forward it to your email networks and to help people know. Because, and if you can make a contribution, you can do that on the website too. So, excuse me. That's where we are, you know. We're at the tipping point, and we're going to tip one way or the other. So far, we've been accelerating in the wrong direction, but it's a big wake-up moment, and it's time for us to stand up and be counted and be heard and change the direction of history. If we win the White House, we'll turn it into a greenhouse. But we can also win the day, short of winning the office, and build for that day. Because if you've noticed, the Democrats and Republicans do not have a single exit strategy on the table. Not one from the critical crises that we're facing. It's all more of the same and worse than the same. That's what the choices are. Neither is acceptable. So more and more people will continue to be driven into our camp. I urge you, you know, this doesn't stop on November 6th. November 6th is the jumping off point. If we win the election, we're going to need your help more than ever. If we don't win the election, we're going to need your help more than ever. We have a crisis on our hands, no matter whether it's Romney or Obama. I've lived under Mitt Romney for 4 years. It was absolutely indistinguishable when he passed the baton to Deval Patrick, who was the poster child for the Democratic Party governors. So not much difference to be found. They both just shake the Etch-a-Sketch and hope that you'll forget their record and what they did before. So, you know, there is absolutely nothing to lose here. We have everything to gain. We can take our future back and make it just, sustainable, green, and democratic. Thank you all so much.